After transmigrating as the stand-in for the white moonlight, I decided to PUA the domineering CEO. If you're going to treat me as her substitute, then at least send me an abs pic first. You can't even seduce me, how do you expect to seduce her? I had become the tragic heroine of a melodrama. In the story, I was just a substitute for his beloved Cleo. He treated me with zero respect, and I still gave him everything, did housework, cooked soup, warmed his bed, and endured the mocking sarcasm of his friends. When the white moonlight returned, she humiliated me relentlessly. To please her, he told me to get lost. I was left to die of cancer, while he was left with regret. I only lost my life. But he lost the one he truly loved. This time, I was going to walk a path no one had foreseen. At this point in the plot, Francis had just offered me $30,000 a month to act as his substitute girlfriend. Francis looked exactly like every overbearing CEO you could imagine. "You'll live here from now on," he ordered. "Take care of my daily needs. Be here when I get home. I still have classes. Drop out." The original heroine had done exactly that, quit school to become his full-time housekeeper, completely disconnected from society, left with no way out. But I had no intention of repeating her mistakes. "President Wright," I said calmly, "I did some digging. The reason you chose me is because I resemble your white moonlight, Cleo. If you love her so much and can't forget her, why would you even look for a substitute? Isn't that an insult to your love?" The man who was just about to push me down onto the couch froze. "That's none of your concern. The best dowry a man can offer," I said slowly, "is loyalty, chastity, and purity. Sis Nelson isn't dead, she just went abroad. If she comes back and finds out you've had a mistress, imagine how disappointed she'll be. To be frank, in girl circles, we'd call someone like you a rotten cucumber, cheap and worthless. You had a chance to reunite, but now that's gone." Francis found himself ambushed by a sudden crash course in male virtue. "Don't think you can lie to her," I said, wagging a finger sternly. "There are no walls that don't leak. And besides, our relationship is a paid arrangement. If anything physical happens, that would be considered solicitation, and that falls under the criminal code. That wouldn't be good for your personal image or your company's stock price." "You sure took the money fast," he muttered, giving me a sideways glance. Still, he cautiously got up and let me go. "I'm trying to save you," I replied, unbothered. "Since I happen to have the face you long for, one that can soothe your broken heart, I feel it's my duty to take on this responsibility, though not through selling my body." "So if you're not going to be my lover," he asked, "how do you plan to comfort me?" "I'll be your personal dating coach," I offered, shifting my posture on the couch. In the original novel, it was said that when I looked up at him from this angle, I looked exactly like her. "You must stop seeing me as a stand-in," I advised. "You need to believe I am Sis Nelson, starting now. Imagine, if she were standing here in front of you, what would you do?" Francis lit a cigarette, his gaze distant. "She's never been here before. Pathetic. Absolutely whipped." "Well, I'm here now, aren't I?" I said with a gentle smile. "So what are you going to do, Under the dim light, Francis stared at my face, entranced. He leaned in to kiss me. I slapped him across the face. Kissing a girl without her consent counts as sexual harassment. My gaze turned cold, chin tilted slightly upward. "Go to the bathroom, wet your shirt, and show me your abs." Francis was still reeling from that slap, his expression frozen in shock. I dragged him up without mercy, pushed him into the bathroom, and took a photo of his abs. I'd fixed him up for it, misbuttoned his shirt by one, let the defined V-lines disappear beneath a sleek black belt. Dress pants, polished shoes, ascetic yet seductive. Even Sis Nelson herself would approve. I tossed the phone to him. "Send it to her." Francis hesitated. I can't." "You've never pursued a girl before, have you?" I asked. "Never had a normal relationship?" His eyes flashed with guilt and irritation. I licked my lips. "Then let me be your exclusive love trainer," I offered. "I'll simulate interactions with Sis Nelson and teach you what girls like. You'll develop both skills and experience, so next time you confess to her, you won't be this clueless. Besides, this is strictly contractual. Purely professional. No emotions. No physical contact. Your purity will remain intact." Francis considered it. "Fine. Then I'm heading back now. You'll drive me." "What?" I glanced at the time. "It's already 11. It's too late, unsafe for girls to go home alone. And I'm Sis Nelson right now, so don't even think about sending a driver." Francis stared at me for a long moment. Finally, he picked up his car keys and drove me back to campus. I changed my WeChat avatar to match Cleo's and messaged him, "You behaved well today. Francis, good night." Men like him are only bold when they think they're the ones in control. If you give everything and lose your heart in the process, they think you're cheap. But if you set the rules, establish the game on your terms, and take their money with grace, suddenly they become polite. Some will even thank you. The next morning, I texted him good morning. Francis replied promptly and even suggested lunch. I dressed up just enough and got into his Bentley right on time. You're doing well today, I smiled. Prompt replies, initiated the invite, and the car you drove gives me face. Just that. Just what? You need a haircut, I said, after letting my eyes linger appropriately before looking away. It was the first time Francis experienced the female gaze. He nervously touched his hair, and for the rest of the ride, he kept glancing at the rearview mirror, trying to figure out what was wrong with his look. After all, the gaze is a form of power. Men have always scrutinized women with their eyes, defining what's beautiful, what's sexy. Now, it was my turn to appraise him without restraint. Just to make one thing clear between us, I'm the one in control. Men are always scrutinizing women. Their gazes set the rules for us, what counts as beauty, what qualifies as sexy. I appraised Francis without restraint for one simple reason, to make it clear who, between the two of us, held the power. Later, at the dinner table, I kept the same stance. The restaurant is lovely, the food is delicious, and you're very gentlemanly, I said lightly. But I get the feeling you're not very good at making girls happy. Were you this quiet when you were with Sis Nelson too? Francis cleared his throat, visibly nervous. I'm not very sure what to talk about with girls. Compliment me. I leaned forward slightly, looking straight into his eyes. He froze for a moment, then his face flushed. You look very beautiful today. Go on. He turned his head away. Your outfit is simple. Very pure. That's already better, I nodded. You added a bit of detail instead of giving a vague compliment. What else? He struggled for a long time before finally forcing out, your lipstick shade looks really good. Seeing that he truly had nothing left to offer, I lowered my gaze and began cutting my steak. Were you busy this morning? Not too bad. Tell me a bit about your company, I said casually. I'm really curious. I've never met any other CEOs, you're the only one I know. I rested my chin in my hand and looked at him with exaggerated sincerity. Francis began talking about his work. I guided the conversation and praised him at just the right moments. Without realizing it, he ended up telling me quite a lot. At the end, I gave him a little lesson. See? You guide the other person to talk about themselves, then keep affirming them. That way, they'll be willing to share more, and the connection naturally deepens. Francis caught on quickly. Then, what were you doing this morning? Thinking about you, I replied without hesitation. His gaze flickered. He turned away, his handsome face tinged with red. Lowering my eyes, I continued cutting my steak with ease. Just a little conversational technique. All in all, I was quite satisfied with this date. In the original story, this substitute version of me never even got to go on a date with him, wasn't even worthy of a proper meal. This had never been about whether he loved me or not. It was about whether, in his eyes, I still possessed basic human dignity, whether I was worth being treated seriously. Thinking that, I casually had him carry my bag and pointed out, in roundabout ways, that he lacked awareness. A dignified CEO carrying my canvas tote. Well, it actually looked pretty good on him. When I returned to the dorm, Lauren greeted me by splashing a cup of water straight in my face. Alice, she sneered, I heard you've latched onto my brother. You really have no shame. Lauren was Francis's younger sister. Behind every tragic female lead, there's always an awful sister-in-law who joins her brother in tormenting her. Cleo was their childhood friend, their so-called white moonlight. Someone from their world. Someone I supposedly didn't belong with. In the original story, Lauren constantly beat and humiliated me. You think looking like Cleo means anything? She spat. Being a substitute means you'll always be a substitute, someone who'll never make it onto the stage. I wiped the water from my face and dialed Francis's number. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I simply asked whether he was free that evening. Yes, he replied. Where would you like to eat? Eating out isn't sincere enough, I said, licking the water from my lips, deliberately letting Lauren hear. Tonight, I'll go to your place. You can cook for me. Then I hung up. Lauren snapped, screaming like a boiling kettle. My brother would never let you into his house. He'd cook for you? Is he insane? Who do you think you are? I lifted the corner of my lips. Guess. You slut. Believe it or not, I can make one phone call and you'll never graduate. The Lin family really was powerful. Soon enough, I was summoned by my advisor. He lectured me sternly about my conduct. I recruited you to do academic research, he said coldly, yet you're out there clinging to wealthy men, making a spectacle of yourself. Luxury cars in and out every day, are you still focused on your studies? In the original story, my advisor had sided with Lauren, ruined the original heroine's reputation, and forced her to drop out, turning her into Frances's gilded canary. Did I fail to complete any project? I shot back. Did I miss any data entry? Which experiment didn't I stay up all night for? I stared at him. You put such a huge label on me, just to kiss the Lin family's boots. He had never been challenged like this. Enraged, he threw me out of the lab. It was late autumn. The air was freezing. Standing in the hallway, I suddenly realized my clothes were still wet. The associate professor next door, Professor Nelson, noticed and led me into her office. Change into this, she said gently, handing me clean clothes. Looking at her refined, composed face, I vaguely remembered her name, Emily. One of the few side characters in the original story who had ever shown kindness to the female lead. Unfortunately, she had very little screen time. All I knew was that she had been stuck at the associate professor rank for years, unable to get promoted. You may really lose your degree after offending your advisor, she said, handing me a cup of hot milk tea. So what if I get it? I replied calmly. Plenty of graduate students are unemployed anyway. Jobs are hard to find now. And I'm a woman, I added. If I really want to survive in academia, I'm sure you, Teacher Nelson, understand what that entails better than anyone. Holding my coffee, I let my gaze linger on her before speaking again. Teacher Nelson, I have a project on hand, very promising. The clients are already lined up. Would you be interested in hearing more? That evening, Francis drove over to pick me up. Did Lauren give you a hard time? He asked. Lauren loved calling him to complain about me. Any explanation I offered was taken as an excuse, and excuses were proof of guilt. She relies on you a lot, I said gently. Seeing you treat me well, she feels insecure about losing her brother. It's understandable. But what? She really wants to enter the entertainment industry, I continued softly. She's not studying seriously, auditioning everywhere. Her grades used to be very good. Just a few words were enough to make Francis frown. In the original plot, Lauren actually went on to become an award-winning actress. What kind of nonsense was that? A top star too, earning over $2 million a day. Why did every stroke of luck fall on the Lin family? I made up my mind to change her fate. Students with her kind of background, I said casually, usually go abroad for further studies. You're right, Francis agreed. Exactly. Send her overseas. Let her study for 3 or 4 years. By the time she comes back, she'll be too old for the industry anyway. We stopped by a supermarket, then returned to Francis's villa on the outskirts of town. Girls nowadays are quite delicate, I said lightly. Especially someone like Sis Nelson. You didn't pursue her just to have her cook and serve you, did you? We'll hire help, Francis replied naturally. I sneered inwardly. So now you know how to hire help? Then why, in the original story, was I the one cooking soup for you for 3 whole years? A man who can cook scores major points, I continued aloud. It shows he's family-oriented and romantic. You're lacking in that department, your job keeps you busy, so you don't have much time to accompany someone. I'd suggest you cook more. Francis took off his suit jacket and tied an apron over his white shirt. I used to cook when I studied abroad. I'm just a bit rusty now. I can hardly wait, I smiled. Let me test your skills. I sat on a bar stool, lazily resting my chin in my hand, spinning slightly as I watched him work in the kitchen. Ah, how the tides had turned. Finally, it was his turn to wash his hands and cook for me. It felt glorious. Francis had studied overseas, and surprisingly, his Western cooking was quite good. I praised him generously. Looks great, smells great, tastes great. No major issues. You just need to find out what Sis Nelson likes and cater to her preferences. She likes spicy food, Francis said, a hint of nostalgia in his eyes. Strong flavors. In the original novel, I cooked for him for 3 full years, yet he never once remembered what I liked to eat. But the moment Cleo came back, he ordered spicy fish for dinner, completely ignoring the fact that I had painful period cramps. So it wasn't that his memory was bad. He just never bothered to care about me. And really, who would bother remembering the preferences of a clingy, self-sacrificing woman who threw herself at him? I stirred the creamy mushroom soup in front of me. This isn't very healthy. You really should pay more attention to nutrition, your dishes use way too much butter and cheese. Is your cholesterol even okay? Francis looked a little stunned. You're always working, barely have time to exercise, eating rich foods, drinking. When was your last health checkup? Francis sat up straighter. It was, okay, I guess. You're almost 30, right? Not so young anymore. Time to start taking care of yourself. He looked genuinely shocked, probably never imagined being called old by a sweet-faced college girl. But you know, I continued, biotech is quite advanced these days. In Silicon Valley, it's common for executives to hire private medical teams, custom supplements, anti-aging regimens, to maintain the body of a 25-year-old. One of our professors even introduced this project to our department. Francis wasn't particularly interested at first. But I knew all his problems, insomnia, gastritis, allergies, so I kept PUAing him. Telling him his dark circles were worsening, his energy was low, even the corners of his eyes were showing fine lines. Clearly a case of internal dampness imbalance. And when the moment was right, I introduced him to Emily. Our department was one of the infamous 4 pits of science, biochem, materials, chem-eng, and environment. Emily worked in pharmaceutical research. She prescribed him a few supplements to try out, and he felt better. So Emily assembled a team of private doctors and nutritionists to monitor his daily health and administer treatment. Meanwhile, I wasn't idle either. I ran around registering a company, linked it to our university, applied for the student entrepreneur subsidy, and leveraged the school to get all the legal approvals in place. By the time Francis signed the contract with Emily, I was already listed as the co-founder of Cyberbiotech. I do feel much better lately, Francis told me, glowing. My sleep's improved, I wake up refreshed, and I've been sharper at work. I even have time to exercise now. I smiled at him. Told you, Professor Nelson knows her stuff. And what's the total cost? He asked, turning to her. 2 million, Emily replied, lips curving into a calm smile. 2 million a year. After landing our first major client, Emily and I went out for a celebratory dinner. Your advisor found out we partnered, she said, and he absolutely blew up. We called our graduate advisors boss. Mine used to mock me for being aimless. No way, I laughed. Funny, he actually called me today to ask when I'm coming back to class. After hearing I'd landed a massive Lin family contract, his attitude did a complete 180. For the first time ever, he was warm, polite, even hinting that I should have partnered with him instead. I told him straight, I only consider female partners in business. Women are detail-oriented, cautious, emotionally intelligent, and empathetic. This was the same man who once said, right to my face, next round, I'm not admitting any more women. They all end up clinging to rich men anyway. From now on, I'll only take male students. Emily asked, so are you going back to school? I shook my head. What's school for, if not to land a job? I already have a job, I have a company to run. I even told him to go ahead and cancel my student registration. I really don't care. She raised an eyebrow, then chuckled. Even if he agrees, the department won't. They want you to give the outstanding graduate speech. To you, Professor Emily, may you soon earn full professorship. We clinked glasses. In truth, what I was doing wasn't all that different from the original novel. I took care of Francis, made sure his body and mind were at ease, removed all his burdens. The difference was, in the original, I did everything myself. Now, I had a professional team to do it, earned a hefty cut in the process, and became the university's entrepreneurial star. No longer the pitiful dropout who faded into a man's shadow. This kind of motherly sacrifice, giving everything and asking nothing, is worthless. Men don't fall in love with you because of it. In fact, the more emotion you pour in, the more they think it's due to their own charm. They think they deserve it, and that you're just naive and foolish. I never understood why tragic female leads always play caregiver. It feels like some kind of East Asian conditioning, if you love him, you must become his mom. And this, for some reason, is still praised as a virtue. But if it were a real virtue, why don't men do it? Why don't they become the supportive house husband, while women go out to conquer the world, surrounded by admirers? I respect women who dedicate themselves to home and partner. But that's not me. I don't like taking care of people, especially not men. What do they have to do with me? Why should I be the candle that burns itself to light his way? My time is just as precious. So I choose, like them, to love money, crave success, lust after power, and yes, admire youth and beauty too. Just like it says on the cover of the Neapolitan novels, my entire life has been one vulgar struggle to rise in social class. When the month ended, Francis transferred the payment. I refused. President Wright, I was just joking, I said sweetly. You're Lauren's brother. I think you're a decent guy. I just wanted to be friends. Of course I'd never take your money. Pure little Alice could sacrifice her body for love, never ask for a penny, and walk away without complaint. She'd carry the reputation of a whore and get nothing in return. Me? I do things differently. I'll take your money, through a proper business account. And erase all traces of ever being a substitute lover. I converted the 300,000 yen into a Harley motorcycle and returned it to him as a gift. He was thrilled, like a child, eyes sparkling as he looked at me. The next day, I received a mountain of luxury gifts. A brand new Dior handbag. A Chanel necklace. A Bulgari bracelet. Nice. All thanks to me teaching him the art of generosity. Sweet Alice was pure and frugal, meaning she didn't spend much. Now, he'd finally learned to spend on me. In this vulgar game of social hierarchy, everyone comes with a price tag. Who you are determines what gifts you receive and how you're treated. I got you a gift because you're our VIP client, I said to him in a voice message. What are you doing with all this? Congratulations on your successful startup, Francis replied. His voice had lost the cold edge it once carried. In that case, I'll politely decline, I sent back with a grin. Let me take you car shopping this weekend. When we went racing together, we ran into one of his friends. Oh? Who's this? The guy laughed. Your new girl? She looks so much like Cleo. Francis looked a little awkward. I, on the other hand, was calm and graceful. I pulled out a business card and handed it to him. Alice, co-founder of Cyber Biotech. May I ask your name? He glanced at the title, then extended his hand. Hall. James Hall. Ah. Yet another idiot side character. One of those childhood friends who thinks Francis and Cleo are meant to be. Thinks I'm just a vulgar intruder. The kind who sees me as a lowly servant, blames me for every misstep Francis makes, and orders me around without dignity. They'll get drunk at the club and still expect me to pick them up. So, when did you start riding motorcycles? James asked Francis. Francis looked over at me. Alice got me a Harley. Well, why not? It's his money anyway. I smiled gracefully, even as my inner voice muttered, he barely has any hobbies or leisure time. He works nonstop. I figured he was a little too tightly wound, so I hoped he'd try something thrilling, like the adrenaline rush of speed. James let out a laugh. Damn. Why don't I ever get a beautiful woman gifting me a Harley? Francis, you lucky bastard. You landed yourself a sugar mommy, huh? Feigning surprise, I replied innocently, oh no, Mr. Hall. President Wright and I don't have that kind of relationship. We're strictly business partners. James kept circling us, eyes gleaming with gossip. What kind of business? Can I join? High-end medical technology, I said with a gentle smile. If you're interested, Mr. Hall, I'll have my assistant send you our company and project overview later. The moment I mentioned assistant, James's expression shifted. Gone was the smug smirk, replaced by polite restraint. After all, he could act disrespectful toward a mistress. A mistress was a toy. Disposable. But a young founder with no romantic entanglements, backed by business ties? That was different. In social circles, men know exactly when to adjust their tone. They read the room with precision. Everyone in their group had brought a date. I dressed just as fashionably as the other women, clad in luxury from head to toe. And yet, there was an invisible line between us. It became clearest at dinner, when James raised a glass of mutai in my direction. I don't drink, I declined with a smile. Of course I drink. I could down a whole bottle of mutai without blinking. But I'd never drink for a man. What do they have to do with me? I'll take that, Francis interjected, rising to accept the toast. Amid cheers, he downed it in one go. How gallant, someone said. You've trained him well, another laughed. Francis beamed. Sitting next to me, he felt like a man of worth. Afterward, I followed through and sent James the project pitch and company profile. This is the same wellness program President Wright uses, I told him. You can ask him about the results firsthand. James was a notorious womanizer. I hinted gently that the treatment could greatly enhance his intimate experiences. He was thrilled, signed the contract on the spot. I took Francis's whole circle out a few more times, and one by one, turned them all into clients. Which makes me wonder, why do tragic heroines never leverage the elite resources around them? If everyone already assumes you're clinging to a man's wealth, why the hell not actually make his money your money? Why be so polite? At year-end, when I received my first bonus, I bought a luxury condo downtown. To celebrate, I invited Francis over for dinner and gave him a tour of the place. Buying into Song Garden right after graduation, you're clearly the best among your peers. His voice was filled with admiration. I simply smiled. How would I even know about this housing complex? Well, because he was the one who chose it originally. In the original story, this was where Francis settled Alice. 3 years later, when his white moonlight returned, Alice packed a single suitcase and left quietly, abandoning the villa with nothing but memories of her love. But she never once thought about the 3 years of her youth she lost. At the very least, she should have taken the house. I tossed the property deed onto the coffee table and looked out through the floor-to-ceiling windows, down at the shimmering river view. As the sun set, Francis handed me a glass of champagne. What a beautiful scene. After New Year's, I was busy chasing investors. At one of Francis's banquets, I ran into his mother. So you're Miss Tang, she said with a smile, radiant in pearls and diamonds. I've heard so much about you from Francis. I've been wanting to meet you, but our schedules never aligned. I smiled warmly. That's on me. I was supposed to visit you last week, but I got pulled into an urgent engagement and couldn't get away. She was invited by the city as a representative of outstanding youth, Frances added proudly. Had to attend a government event. Mrs. Wright's eyes widened. Frances, where did you meet such an impressive young woman? She looks so young, too. I was Lauren's roommate, I said modestly. Mr. Wright approached me because I reminded him of an old friend. He said I gave him a sense of warmth and familiarity. I glanced at Frances meaningfully. He coughed twice, shooting me a look behind his mother's back. Oh, you must mean Cleo, Mrs. Wright smiled. She used to be our neighbor. Very spirited, very self-centered, not nearly as steady as you. You two resemble each other slightly, but a woman's real beauty is in her bearing. Well. In the original novel, this very Mrs. Wright always looked down on me. She even offered me money to stay away from her son. Cleo was her ideal daughter-in-law. I, the stand-in, made her feel insulted. Early on, she tried every way to get rid of me. When that failed, she criticized everything, said my cooking was too salty, my detergent too harsh, my fabric softener not hypoallergenic. I was Frances's little stepmom, and she was the real mother. She scrutinized everything I did like I was her household help. At their estate, I once ate 2 prunes and got a side eye. It wasn't about being frugal, it was about PUA. Degrading you until you believed you were undeserving. But now, Mrs. Wright clutched my arm affectionately and pulled me aside. Apparently, the real reason she'd been so eager to see me was that Frances had recommended our biotech services to her. She was in her 50s, and desperate to slow down aging. We usually serve younger high-net-worth clients, I began cautiously. Younger bodies were less risky. But since Frances and I are such good friends, I'll do my best to accommodate your needs. Who turns down money when it walks through the door? However, I can't promise the same results. Maintenance is not a substitute for medical care. My mind was already drafting her personalized treatment plan. If something went wrong, we'd just hospitalize her quickly, after selling her a few extra insurance packages. Mrs. Wright was all smiles. That's fine, sweetheart. I'd like to give it a try. What could I say? Of course, I had her sign the contract, with tears in my eyes, and the price doubled for her age. That's $4 million a year. Oh, I nearly forgot. In the original story, Alice didn't just serve Frances. She also served his mother. She cooked elaborate meals, brought supplements every time she visited, and still wasn't allowed to go upstairs. Cleo's old bedroom sat empty. Alice was never allowed to stay even one night. That first New Year they spent together, Alice worked in the kitchen until midnight. Mrs. Wright later told Frances she'd already gone to bed drunk. And told Alice to clean up and leave. So Alice walked home alone, in the midnight snow, as the new year began. But this time, when Mrs. Wright invited me to stay over, she led me upstairs to show me the guest room. This one's been prepared especially for you, she said. I took my time examining it. Eventually, her expression grew nervous. Never mind, sweetie. Maybe next time. I picked up my bag with exaggerated disappointment and turned to leave. Her face turned ghostly pale. As if I had judged the room unworthy of me. And I would never tell her what exactly I found disappointing. Let her guess. Let her worry. Just like Alice once did. Some time later, Mrs. Wright came to see me again. I told my secretary, say I'm in a meeting. Take her to the reception room to wait. Yes, President Brown. I didn't have any malicious intent. I just didn't want to come running like a dog the moment she snapped her fingers. Every scene involving her in the original plot was filled with melodrama. I worked so hard just so that when people like her wanted to compete with me, they'd at least have to pass through a security check and my assistant first. Even if she came to throw $10 million at me and asked me to leave her son, my legal team should be standing behind me. That would be much more in line with my aesthetic. I scrolled my phone for a while before walking out. Hello, Auntie. Just wrapped up a meeting. Mrs. Wright had a small porcelain stew pot in hand. I heard you often get stomach aches, so I made some bird's nest soup to replenish your chi and blood. How thoughtful of you. What's the occasion? She sighed. Frances and Lauren had a big fight. Lauren wants nothing more than to enter the entertainment industry, to become a star. Frances, on the other hand, is dead set on sending her abroad to study. I'm aware, I nodded. More than aware, I was the one who first suggested sending Lauren overseas, and I'd fanned the flames more than once since. But Frances really? Why force her like that? Being an actress isn't the worst thing. The industry's a mess, I said mildly. Mrs. Wright backtracked. Well, Lauren and her brother argued again and again. Frances won't budge. She was supposed to fly to the US today, but she ran away from home. We can't reach her. You're her old roommate, do you know where she might be? I twirled my pen. Don't worry, Auntie. I'll try to get in touch. Then I contacted a couple of my former dorm mates. In the original story, they often ganged up with Lauren against me. After all, I was the shameless girl who seduced her brother. But after I transmigrated, that dynamic changed. I co-founded a company with Professor Nelson. Yes, Emily finally got promoted this year. And those girls, now graduated, were struggling to find jobs. I hired 2 of them, girls from modest families, and became their boss. They now call me President Brown. I pinged them, and they quickly sent over Lauren's location. I drove over. She was crying in a hotel room. Don't think I don't know. It was you who convinced my brother. I just made a casual remark, I said innocently. I didn't know he'd take it so seriously. He keeps comparing me to you now just because we were roommates. Lauren sobbed, mascara running down her cheeks. What's there to compare? I said, reclining on the sofa and crossing my legs. You? Same league as me? Please. While you were busy chasing men in senior year, I was networking with venture capitalists. I went full-on PUA mode. So tell me, are you seriously determined to become an actress? I'm not going abroad. What's the point of studying? You dropped out too. I got my diploma, I said, pouring myself a cup of Longjing tea. I even gave the valedictorian speech. Well, I'm going into acting no matter what. Lauren's conviction was surprisingly strong. I was left speechless. Maybe this really was her fate, to become a film queen. My eyes narrowed thoughtfully. So you don't plan on going back home? You'll fight your way through this industry alone? I'm about to join a short drama production. An agent from Huawei already contacted me. I sneered. The boss of Huawei is their top actress. You've got no connections, no backing, and you have the same style and look as her. Why would she ever promote you? You'll spend your whole life in her shadow. And that company has endless drinking parties. Could you stomach sleeping with sleazy coal bosses just to get ahead? Lauren fell silent. This heiress, so high and mighty at school, was nothing outside. Just a clueless little girl with 0 experience. I calculated quietly. I'll go talk to your brother. Maybe we can start a company for you. He'd agree to that? If he doesn't, I will, I snorted, walking out under her stunned gaze. At Frances's place, I switched tactics. She's dead set on the entertainment industry. That world's a damn mess, Frances muttered, chain-smoking. Here's an idea, I suggested. I'll start a company, hire a manager to guide her. Rather than let her suffer under someone else, let's keep her under our wing, watch her, manage her. Frances looked at me with heartfelt gratitude. You make the arrangements. I'll fund it. This won't cost much. But if word gets out you're dabbling in entertainment, people will laugh their heads off. Don't worry, I'll handle it. I'm genuinely interested in this field. Big capital often looked down on the entertainment business. I didn't care about Frances's reputation. What I did care about was keeping Lauren under my control. Eventually, under my mediation, Lauren returned to the Lin family. Mrs. Wright was in tears. Alice, you're amazing, so capable. Thank you, thank you. She even forced Lauren to bow to me. Remember, Frances said coldly, it's Alice who cleaned up your mess. If you ever give her trouble again. Of course Lauren wouldn't dare. Because I signed her to my company. I was now her boss. Behind the scenes, I told her manager, just take her along. No need to put in too much effort. She's a spoiled heiress, her family just wants her to marry rich. But Lauren surprised me. Despite all my scheming, she starred in 2 hit dramas the very next year. I had to hand it to her. I might loathe Lauren, but I'll never be hostile toward money. That's immoral. So I had her manager fill her schedule to the brim. Acting, variety shows, she was working herself to the bone and earning me 10 to 20 million a month. I took her name and used it to raise 480 million in funding, then hired a fleet of young, handsome men to join the company. And just like that, I developed a lovely habit. Whenever I was stressed, I'd escape to the entertainment branch. Being surrounded by hot young men calling me sis. Flirting about night scenes in our next project. It worked wonders on my mood. Thanks, Lauren. Just as my career was soaring, Frances called and invited me on a trip. His company offered annual all-expenses-paid vacations. We'd been getting along well, and he always included me. This wasn't the first time, so I packed casually and headed over. Truth be told, I didn't really hate him anymore. He was my first pot of gold, after all. He didn't just give me money, he brought his entire family and circle of friends to give me money too. Honestly, not a scumbag. More like a living bodhisattva from Mount Putua. Every Lunar New Year, I'd visit him before going to the temple. Another reason our relationship stayed friendly was, there was 0 romantic entanglement between us now. Just business. We'd chat over tea, share news, discuss investment trends, see where the money was flowing. This is what most CEOs' lives look like, by the way. My standards for Frances were low, so long as he didn't expect me to cook, clean, get pregnant, miscarry, or play his emotional stand-in. We'd get along just fine. But alas, life is full of surprises. I arrived at the hotel he'd booked, only to find the entire lawn covered in pink roses. And not just bouquets, this was a fully designed luxury floral installation, with a giant 30-meter rose sculpture as the centerpiece. The vibe was straight out of a fantasy wedding brochure. Francis stood beneath it, holding a bouquet of pearl-tinted roses. Our mutual friends were there. Mrs. Wright was there. Lauren was there. All their company staff, everyone, dressed to the nines. And every single face turned toward me, brimming with anticipation. And me? I was wearing flip-flops. Bare toes. No nail polish. I thought we were going to the beach. Francis, who had clearly spent hours on his outfit and perfect hair, walked toward me holding a bouquet of fresh roses. "Alice," he said with great emotion, "I was never good at talking to girls. I didn't know the first thing about love. You were the first girl who had the patience to teach me, to guide me. I never imagined I could talk so freely with a woman. I'm always so happy when I'm with you. Now, I want to make that happiness permanent. Will you marry me?" Then he got down on one knee and pulled out a diamond ring. I was stunned. Everyone around us was cheering. Cameras were pointed at my face. But all I knew in that moment was, I didn't want to get married. And if I ever did, it sure as hell wouldn't be to Francis. So I grabbed his hand and shook it like a maniac. Thank you, President Wright, for this incredible honor. We were just business partners before, and now you want to become my life partner. This is all too sudden. I'm completely speechless. My brain's gone to mush. This deal is huge. You caught me off guard with this ambush. I wasn't prepared at all. Come, let's sit down and talk this through. Hey, it's getting late. Everyone should head inside for dinner. Has the food been served yet? Francis's face darkened, and the crowd quickly realized that the proposal hadn't gone smoothly. But I'd already given him enough of an out, we hadn't torn the facade. So the guests simply smiled and flowed into the hotel restaurant for the free vacation banquet. Francis couldn't quite face me, so he pretended to still be the dignified groom and went around greeting guests. James came slinking over, clearly ready to scold me. But I cut him off first with a frown. What was Francis thinking? That was incredibly disrespectful to me. James was caught off guard. Huh? How was he being disrespectful? Who proposes without telling the other person first? Even the cameraman was dressed better than me. I stood in the middle of that ridiculous backdrop in flip-flops. People on Xiaohongshu will think I photobombed the setup to act like a wannabe influencer. Seriously? That's why you're mad? James was speechless. He planned this for over a month, spent over $3 million, and made all of us promise to keep it a secret. And I'm not even his girlfriend. What was he proposing for? I said coldly. Well, your entertainment company is full of those little boy toys. He probably panicked. Oh, so in his panic he thought a grand proposal was the answer? Did he not think he might get rejected? No backup plan? That's reckless and impulsive. I used to think he was steady, but apparently not. James was completely lost now, unable to follow my logic. After a moment of stunned silence, he stammered, "You rejected him in public. That's so humiliating for him. One thing about me, I don't waste energy blaming myself. This isn't my fault. It's entirely on him. First of all, he should have asked me in private. If I said no, he'd be sad, sure, but not publicly humiliated. Second, he had no plan B. If you go into something like this thinking you can't lose, that's your own damn arrogance. So who does he think I am? Some object he can just assume will say yes? Does he not respect me at all?" Seeing me get more and more agitated, James quickly tried to calm me down. "Of course not. You're misunderstanding him. He really likes you, that's why he did it. Then he has terrible emotional intelligence." I refused to accept any moral guilt. Even if the emperor himself showed up, Francis was taking full responsibility for today's disaster. Seeing how firm I was, James looked fully brainwashed by my logic. Okay. He's bad with emotions. But can't you be a little more understanding? You two have known each other for years. We've all seen how he treats you. Just accept him already. You know our relationship better than I do? If you love him so much, you go marry him. The wedding setup's already here, and I'll even get the tailor to fit you for that custom tux." James looked like he was about to cry. "Alice, I'm not even gay. Francis is just my bro. How can you say that?" As I was roasting James to a crisp, Francis showed up. James fled like he'd seen a lifeline, avoiding even eye contact with Francis, just in case someone thought he was gay. I was still fuming. Not done at all. I motioned for Francis to follow me into the meeting room. Once inside, I turned around sharply. What the hell was that supposed to be today? What do you think it was, Francis sat down on the sofa, pulled out a cigarette, and twirled it in his fingers, but didn't dare light it. We've known each other for years. Don't you think I deserve an answer by now? An answer to what? We've never even dated. How are we jumping straight to marriage? No dating? Ha. His hand trembled slightly as he held the cigarette. Then what were all these years? I cooked for you, drove you everywhere, took you out. In 2019, when your dad was in the hospital and you were stuck abroad, I stayed by his side every day. And I haven't done anything for you? I shot back. Who bought your Harley? Who picked out your watch, your shoes, your suits? Even if I didn't pay, I picked them. Every time I traveled, I brought you a gift. When you said you wanted the first milk tea of autumn, I had hundreds delivered to your office so everyone on every floor got one. You name it, I got it for you. Was that not thoughtful enough? Francis calmed a little, but still looked disappointed. Listen to yourself. You sound like a scumbag. You've just been stringing me along, keeping me on the back burner. I was stringing you along? I snapped. Francis, I thought of you as a friend. I'm a generous person. I treat my friends well. He turned his head away. There's no such thing as friendship between a man and a woman. Oh. So I treat you like a friend, and you want to sleep with me? I picked up my flip-flop and hurled it at his custom-tailored suit. Francis had never been hit before. He lost his father young and had been spoiled ever since. The shoe hit him squarely, and he instinctively flinched. I immediately pulled off the other sandal and paced the wooden floor like a furious mother tiger. All right then. Since we're doing this, let's talk. Do you even remember how we met? You were Lauren's classmate. We had dinner together, he muttered. And then? Huh? I slammed the flip-flop on the table. You offered me $300,000 to be your mistress. Because I looked like your first love? You think after that I could ever see you as a romantic partner? You're insane. A flicker of guilt crossed Francis's eyes. That was, years ago. I didn't know you well back then. We cleared up that misunderstanding quickly. Misunderstanding? Please. I snorted. From the moment those words left your mouth, you were done. Because it revealed your true character, low, base, and disgusting. What kind of man offers to keep a college girl the first day they meet? What kind of man brings her home and tries to sleep with her right away? You don't just lack morals, you need a damn exorcism. Francis sat up straight. You're not being fair. That was the first time I ever tried anything like that. I'd never dated before. Never had a mistress. And I never did after. Every business event, guys bring dates. But if you were free, I always brought you. If not, I'd go with my male assistant. I swear, I'm the most well-behaved man in the whole city. And yes, maybe I approached you the wrong way at first. But only because it was you. From the moment I saw you, I knew I was meant to be with you. Maybe I spoke poorly. Maybe I was aggressive. But my love for you has always been sincere. That much, you have to admit. I stared at him, stunned. Well, look at you, Francis. You've grown. The ice-cold CEO who once couldn't speak a full sentence was now spewing sweet nothings like a seasoned playboy. If I hadn't read the original story, I might have believed him. I tossed the flip-flop aside, slumped into the chair, and said flatly, sure, you're saying all the right things now. But I know, if I hadn't climbed my way up these past 3 years, if I were still that broke, helpless college girl. Right now, I'd just be your little canary in a gilded cage. Forget love. You wouldn't even respect me. That's nonsense. No, that's the truth. I've read the script, okay? What I despise most is that the poor version of me was someone you saw as worthy of only being kept. A mistress. That insult to my dignity showed me exactly who you were, vulgar, reckless, unkind, cruel, even. And it made your love today feel incredibly opportunistic. Do you understand that? Francis went quiet. We'd finally reached the kind of soul-level conversation he'd never had to think about. Because he's a man. A man with access to vast resources. In the jungle of society, he's always been at the top of the food chain. He's never had to lower his head and see the people beneath him. All society expects from him is, win, win, win. Conquer more, acquire more. And as a woman, the only victory I'm supposed to strive for is his affection. This game is rigged. What I value isn't your favoritism. What matters to me is, when you're rich and powerful, how do you treat those who aren't? That's real character. We both have wealth now, sure. But so what? I pointed out the window at a hotel staff lady walking past. She and I, we're equal. There's no difference between our humanity. But to you, and your whole family, you think you're above everyone. You think you can trample people as you please. Why did Lauren bully me in school back then? Because she could. And she still never apologized for it. What gives me a sense of security isn't favoritism. It's basic decency. I had injected him with too many new ideas in one breath. When I left, Francis was still sitting there, stunned, trying to process. After I got home, I opened up Jane Eyre and sent him that famous quote, Do you think because I am poor, obscure, plain, and little, I am soulless and heartless? You think wrong. I have as much soul as you, and full as much heart. And if God had gifted me with beauty and wealth, I should have made it as hard for you to leave me, as it is now for me to leave you. I am not talking to you now through the medium of custom, convention, nor even of mortal flesh, it is my spirit that addresses your spirit, just as if both had passed through the grave, and we stood at God's feet, equal, as we are. Then I added, this is from a book written in 1847. A woman's voice, 200 years ago. And today, in 2023, they still haven't heard us. After this whole ordeal, for a while people whispered that Francis had become my lovesick puppy. At a dinner party, an older man even pulled him aside and advised him not to be so obsessed with a woman. That I was too headstrong, too powerful, and women should be sweet and obedient. A guy like him? He could easily date a different internet celebrity every month. Otherwise, what was the point of all that wealth? Francis replied, I admire her. She means a lot to me. I just don't want her to look down on me anymore. Character comes before achievement, he told the man plainly. Of course, the guy thought he was being pretentious and holier than thou. But it didn't matter, Francis was the client. So the man, who grumbled about him in private, switched future dinners to tea houses. Drinking tea, playing mahjong, easing into a middle-aged health guru lifestyle. And just like that, a few months passed. Our 3-year contract was up. And the female lead, Cleo, finally returned to the country. I heard the news from James, immediately. A bunch of us old friends are getting together to welcome her. Want to join? I found it a bit odd. You're her old friends. What does it have to do with me? Well, you're one of us now. How could we possibly not invite you? James chuckled over the phone. Just letting you know. Totally up to you. It felt delicate. But I went anyway, because I'm nosy like that. I wanted to see what kind of fate awaited them in this alternate timeline I'd rewritten. When I arrived, everyone was already there, except Francis. Where is he? In a meeting? I thought back, he didn't have anything urgent scheduled today. Oh please? He wouldn't dare come, James said, eyebrows wiggling. And yet you called me? I didn't think you'd actually show. I just didn't want to hide it from you. If you found out later, that'd be worse. Clearly, even these emotionally stunted men had struggled to figure out how to handle White Moonlight Returns properly. It was honestly kind of hilarious. I could tell, everyone was scrambling to help Francis save face. So far from the original plot. When Cleo finally walked in, I studied her face carefully. Yes, our features were somewhat similar. But resemblance in looks doesn't mean anything. And our auras were completely different. I've always had a strong sense of self. No matter the setting, I never think anyone resembles me. Much less that I'd be the one to resemble someone else. Maybe I'm just too proud for that. Cleo, on the other hand, looked visibly uncomfortable. This is our President Brown, Lauren said sweetly, sitting beside me with her arm around mine, like we were besties. Sis Cleo, we always tell President Brown that you two look so alike. Cleo flushed slightly. Just like in the original story, where everyone said Alice was just a stand-in. All pretty women share some resemblance, I said as I clinked glasses with her. She exhaled, visibly relieved. Nothing dramatic happened at the table. Just small talk, polite chatting. I'd never met Cleo before, but I came prepared. As a businesswoman, I brought a welcome gift, a vintage pearl brooch with a classical flair. Later, when the guys were drunk, she changed seats to sit beside me and chat a bit. We formally introduced ourselves. I already knew a little about her. Her family had gone bankrupt, and now this once pampered art student had returned to China to work and pay off debts. There was exhaustion etched between her brows. Have you found a job yet? I asked. James set something up. I'll be managing one of his family's hotels. That's good, I nodded. We added each other on WeChat, and the evening ended peacefully. As we left the venue, Francis's Bentley was waiting outside. The turn signal blinked as he pulled up. I slid into the front passenger seat. Cleo waved at him from outside the window. Francis, why didn't you come tonight? Too busy, he lied through his teeth. Alice was there too, it's the same thing. You're still out this late, and you came all the way over? That's too much trouble, she replied politely. It's past 11. Of course I had to pick her up, Francis said without missing a beat. When Cleo saw us drive off together, her expression clearly dimmed. A hint of envy flickered in her eyes. I sent a message to James, asking him to give her a ride. Then I glanced at Francis. You're awfully nervous tonight. He probably told James to give me a heads up while he himself stayed far away. Never expecting I'd actually show up to meet Cleo. Francis kept both hands on the wheel, staring straight ahead. My mental state is basically falling apart. With all this emotional drama, you're actually handling it pretty well, I said. But what was that? It's the same if I comment. I gave her a gift and you told her it was from you? Are you freeloading off my goodwill now? Yeah, he admitted shamelessly. I freeload your goodwill all the time. I curved my lips into a smile. Cleo didn't stay in Jinghai long. She quickly relocated to one of James's family-run hotels, all the way in a distant city. And within 6 months, they got married. When I received the invitation, I was dumbfounded. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Cleo was desperate to marry up and secure money, and James was a notorious womanizer. In the original storyline, he always sided with Cleo. Another lovesick puppy. This outcome really shouldn't have surprised me. Francis served as the best man, and Cleo invited me to be a bridesmaid. She and I had grown closer over the past few months. She told me she didn't have many real friends. Lauren's circle was full of snobs who looked down on her after her family's downfall. I might have been the only one in her social sphere who treated her with basic kindness. The wedding was lavish. Afterward, Cleo gave birth to a daughter. Then one day, out of the blue, she called me in tears, saying she couldn't take it anymore, she wanted a divorce. Turns out her family downfall wasn't just metaphorical. After marrying into the Hall family, she had no status. No matter how hard she tried to please her in-laws, they never warmed up to her. James had even cheated during her pregnancy. When she confronted him, he hit her. She wanted to have a son, to win the Hall family's approval. But she gave birth to a daughter instead. James didn't even bother registering the marriage. He was out drinking and partying every night. No one took care of her during her postpartum period. And they refused to help pay off her family's debts, monitoring every dime she spent, terrified she'd send money back home. I had seen this outcome coming a mile away. Take your daughter and come live with me, I told her. I've got several empty apartments. Pick anyone you like. She was silent for a long while. Alice, I was just venting. What else can I do? Even if I leave him, how would I survive? How would I raise my daughter? You've never heard of getting a job? I'll hire a nanny for the baby. Once you start earning, you can pay me back for the rent and the help. I might never be able to repay you. I can't find a job, there's nothing out there. Lauren's manager is thinking about quitting. You can take her spot. But she kept resisting, crying the same lines over and over again. That getting divorced was shameful, she couldn't work, she couldn't afford a child. So I booked a ticket and flew out the next day to talk to her in person. Do you know why your life turned out like this? I asked gently. Because you pinned your hopes on a man. You thought that as long as you had a man, everything else would work itself out. But the world doesn't hand out miracles for free. Look at you now, on paper, you're a wealthy housewife. But who's been taking care of the house, giving birth, raising the baby? And how much have you earned for it? Nothing. My nanny makes $200K a year with bonuses. Do you think I dare mistreat her? She's the one bossing me around half the time. But I really don't know if I can handle it, she said softly. I've never worked in the real world. The outside world is a jungle. But this? This is hell. And in hell, you don't even have the dignity of being a person. That struck a chord in her eyes. I saw it. I didn't press further. I just said I'd take her and her daughter on a vacation. The Halls had known me for a long time. They were polite, distant, and had no real affection for their daughter-in-law. They agreed quickly. She packed a single suitcase, held her baby, and flew back with me that very day. I settled her into one of my apartments, brought in a nanny, and had my old manager friend come talk to her about the job. The very next day, Cleo started working at my company. That night, she sent me a WeChat message. Yesterday, I thought my life was over. I was so hopeless I almost took my daughter and jumped. But today, I've already become a completely different person. I replied with a quote from The Second Sex. A man's great fortune is that he is compelled, from childhood, to walk the most difficult path, but also the most reliable one. A woman's misfortune is that she is constantly surrounded by irresistible temptations. She is never required to rise, only encouraged to fall into bliss. By the time she realizes she's been deceived, it's too late. Her strength has already been drained in the descent. Cleo knew she had no way back. She worked hard, took everything seriously, and when my manager left, she stepped up. Cleo and Lauren, who were best friends in the original novel, ended up butting heads quite a bit. Eventually, Lauren's arrogance caught up to her, and she had a public scandal. Cleo finally seized the upper hand and no longer had to put up with her bullying. I personally mentored Cleo for a year, then handed the company over to her. She achieved financial freedom. Her daughter now calls me godmother. Francis didn't learn about any of this until much later. When he did, he was stunned, and panicked. Only after realizing that Cleo and I were strictly business partners, and I had zero romantic interest in her, did he finally calm down. Still, he never dared meet with Cleo alone. The only time they spoke was when Cleo needed to review a contract with me. He answered my phone, and she immediately said, "How dare you answer someone else's phone?" Frances blew up, "Why shouldn't I answer her phone?" And from that day on, Cleo referred to him as that guy. Like every other bestie on earth, she believed he wasn't good enough for me. Then James came crawling back. He saw how radiant and sharp Cleo had become, so confident and commanding, and started chasing her again. Cleo told him, "I'm very busy. Schedule with my assistant." He was booked 2 years out. James made a scene at her company. Then at her apartment. But without a marriage certificate, it wasn't considered a domestic dispute, so he got detained. When he got out, Frances scolded him to his face, "You're disgusting. Pathetic. An embarrassment to men." James became much quieter after that. He was terrified of Frances giving him the cold shoulder. He had some subtle gay vibes, honestly. I told Cleo, "You really were born lucky. No marriage certificate, no cooling off period for divorce, and your daughter came into the world before your career, how efficient." Cleo laughed and said, "James may be trash, but damn if our daughter isn't pretty, smart, and perfect." Honestly, that Y chromosome of his might have been the only decent part. Later, she got together with one of our company's young rising stars, a hotshot actor. She helped him climb to stardom, and when he won Best Actor, he cried during his speech, saying, "I'll take care of our baby. If she won't let me, I'll quit acting." I texted her immediately, "Marry him already. If he quits, my next year's financial report is doomed." They moved in together. Frances found out and nearly imploded with jealousy. "Why am I still just the boyfriend? Am I not good enough to marry you?" "They're just living together," I replied flatly. "We're not even living together." Frances looked like he was about to cry. "How did this happen? I have no sense of security. I'm exhausted from work, driving half an hour just to see you, and sometimes you're not even there. I don't know where you are or who you're with. You don't even reply to my messages. Then move in with me." Lately, I could tell Frances had been feeling anxious. Maybe it was because everyone kept asking him when I was finally going to marry him. He saw all the young, handsome guys swarming our company, and it clearly stressed him out. After we started living together, his mental state improved a bit. One night, while we were lying in bed, he suddenly asked me when we were getting married. I answered him seriously. Marriage is an outdated institution. It doesn't reflect the reality of today's society, that's why so many people don't get married anymore. Isn't what we have now good enough? If it works, we stay together. If not, we part ways. And then, he cried. "I don't care whether marriage is outdated or not. I just want to get married. The way you talk about it makes me feel like you don't care about me at all. You never think about how I feel. No matter what, it's been 10 years, Alice. 10 years. And out there, I'm still just your boyfriend. That pretty boy assistant of yours? Fine. I'll tolerate that. But I'm the one who built everything with you from scratch. You told me once, whatever I wanted, you'd do your best to give it to me. Well, what I want is that damn piece of paper." I thought about it for a while later. And honestly? Fine. Whatever. I'm not exactly a morally upright person. I've never really felt compelled to carry the burden of family responsibility. Back when I first got involved with Francis, it was mostly because he was good in bed. Sleeping with him didn't seem like such a big deal. But because I treated it so casually, he suffered emotionally for years. And that made me feel guilty. Besides, he had grown. The Francis standing in front of me now was nothing like the original version from the book. He had matured in every aspect, how he treated people, how he carried himself. He wasn't just a decent person now, he was better than most. Among all the men I've ever met, his character stood out as one of the best. He had an open mind, was willing to accept new perspectives, and even made the effort to understand things from a woman's point of view. He wasn't like other men. So, I figured it wasn't a big deal. If it didn't work out later, we could always get divorced. The law protects the rich anyway. I wasn't even remotely worried about splitting assets. And I'm a woman of action. The next day, I took him straight to the Civil Affairs Bureau. He held the marriage certificate like it was sacred and told me solemnly, "If I ever get sick or need surgery, you'll be the one who can sign the paperwork now. You're not afraid I'll unplug your ventilator?" I teased. "You're so violent," he said with a sigh. "Barely married and already planning to murder your husband." Francis had reached the point where he could lecture me back with mock moral authority. Our wedding was massive. Extravagant beyond belief. I had absolutely zero desire to make it so over the top. But Francis insisted. I fell flat on my face here once. I need to rise again in the same place. I have to make this grand, let the whole world know. Francis finally simped his way to the finish line. "You don't need to be so self-deprecating," I rolled my eyes. "You're legally my husband now. You can act with a little more confidence. Then let's consummate the marriage tonight." I nearly choked laughing. Truthfully, the wedding took a toll on both of us. We were already in our 30s, with no burning passion or fantasies left to indulge. That night, we just lounged side by side on the garden bench at the estate. Under the moonlight and stars, he turned to me gently and asked, "What are you thinking about?" I was thinking. I've really come a long way. I had completely altered the fates of everyone in this story. I had placed myself in a position where no drama could touch me. And everyone around me had turned into a decent person, whether genuinely or performatively. I had done everything I could to help those so-called vicious female supporting characters who were once trapped in no-win situations. Even when I had the power to destroy them, I never did. As you should, Francis nodded seriously. And from here on out? What's next? Do you have a wish? I thought about it. I hope we never see another cruel, exploitative romance novel again. I hope all women out there will dare to fight and kill their way through society. And I hope people will finally recognize the true value of domestic labor and motherhood. Francis stared at me for a long moment. Then he softly muttered, "God, I really am whipped for you." He was my most loyal disciple.